People want to belong to something that is bigger than them, has a purpose, has a mission, and they feel like you're part of that equation. You're not just a transaction. You're not just somebody. You're not a number that we're just working through. And I think when we do give people free education, we say to them, hey, look, get your education while you're here, and we hope you stay forever, but if you don't, go be great in the community too. They feel like you're part of their lives in some way, and they are.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in Indiana. Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today, I'm joined by Pete Yonkman, president of Cook Group and its subsidiary Cook Medical in Bloomington, one of America's largest private companies and Indiana's third largest private company. Pete's role with Cook gives him a unique perspective on Indiana's robust life sciences sector and what it takes to be an innovator in the medical field. Earlier this year, at the introduction of Indiana University's new launch accelerator for biosciences known as IU Lab, Pete noted that Cook Group has achieved 57 medical firsts as an organization and that every one of them was a result of collaborating with someone outside the company. So Pete is a big fan of collaboration and partnership. A few years ago, he led a partnership between Cook Medical and Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana that resulted in a new production facility being built in a distressed neighborhood on the northeast side of Indianapolis. The plant was intended to not only meet Cook's production needs, but bring jobs and hope to a neighborhood in need. Pete's Hoosier roots run deep. He's a native of Crown Point and attended IU Bloomington, where he graduated Phi Beta Kappa with degrees in psychology and philosophy before earning a law degree from IU Maurer School of Law. He's a co-founder of two groups aligned with IU Sports, Hoosiers Connect, IU's name, image, and likeness entity, and Hoosiers for Good, which builds promotional connections between nonprofits and IU athletics. Pete has also dabbled in entertainment, helping produce the feature film So Cold the River for Apple TV. The movie was shot entirely at the West Baden Springs Hotel near French Lick. Pete has also hosted some podcasts, so he understands this business a little bit too. He's also a big supporter of Monroe County Substance Use Disorder Coalition and is dedicated to initiatives around adult education and workforce development. Pete, welcome to Off the Record Podcast. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. Good to see you again, Nate. It's been a little while,
It
so
has.
Appreciate the opportunity to catch up.
I'm looking forward to it too. So you grew up in the region,
Yes.
which for most Hoosiers, they know that definition of the region. But
Well, it's like because you guys always forget about us. That's we call it the region because you guys never cover.
Well, see,
what's
I
happening
grew up in
region.
South Bend, so the region was pretty familiar territory for me personally.
Yeah.
But we're trying to do better. But so you grew up in Crown Point,
Yeah.
And did you like were you like me at all, where you knew you wanted to get out right away, like hometown? Like I grew up in Mishawaka, South Bend, and as I was getting senioritis in high school, I'm like, I need to get out of here. Were you like that too?
I don't know if it was that so much. I mean, I love Crown Point.
Yeah.
And, it's changed so much now. It's not kind of like it was, but we call ourselves region rats back then. That was our term for ourselves. I love the region. It's a great area. But I wanted to go to IU. My parents, a lot of my family have been there, fan of the sports, it seemed like the right place to go.
It sounds like a familiar story. Both my parents went to IU as well. So I applied to one school, happened to be IU. But
Same.
Brainwashed pretty early on Bobby Knight and Indiana basketball.
Yeah.
So you attended IU.
Uh-huh.
You studied, as I mentioned, psychology and philosophy. Just seems like a natural to go into biotech and diagnostic.
Yeah, I always
field.
joke about people give me a lot of hard time about the psychology and philosophy thing, but I wanted to be here to defend a liberal arts education. So I think the philosophy, it was really because I just kind of followed my interest. I knew I wanted to go to law school, so I sort of followed my interests.
Yeah.
And the philosophy part of it was just it taught you how to think. How do people? They've all dealt with these big questions, and what are they saying? And how do they think about it? And then the psychology was sort of just like how do people process things in their brain. So I feel like I use those skills all the time.
100%.
Just on a daily basis. If you're going to be in a business, you have to understand how people think.
And then you combined those two undergraduate studies with law school, which also,
Yeah.
of course, teaches you how to think and problem solve. So your first job out of law school, when you went to law school, did you know that big law or a big law firm or actually practicing law was not for you? Or how did I know you went into the business world pretty quick right after law school, right?
Yeah. I thought going into law school was going to be one thing. It turned out to be another. It was very independent. Like law school is kind of a singular activity. You don't really, It's not a collaboration. So that was the part of it. I thought, I'm not sure that's for me. I liked working with groups of people and being around building things. So yeah, I took a job out of law school, and then, having been an undergraduate in law school in Bloomington for so long, you meet a lot of cook people. There's a lot of cook people around. And so when there was a job came open for a lawyer position, I applied, and, it wasn't a hard decision to move back to Bloomington.
So you just saw an opening at Cook, and
somebody called and said, "Hey, we've got an opening for a job. Are you interested in applying?" And so I did, and loved it.
23 years later, is that right?
Yeah, 2021 is when I joined.
And Cook has allowed you to try your hand at lots of different things. It's not like, a lot of companies, in some cases, especially if you start in the legal department, you're kind of heads down into that company and the work, but you've been able over a long period of time to be able to focus on lots of things that I think matter to you, but they don't just matter to you. They matter to Cook, and they matter to the community, right?
Yeah. And that's just how fortunate I was to come at a time where I could work directly with Bill and get to see him every day and learn from him every day. When I first joined the company, I don't know if this was planned or not. It had to have been, but I had a cubicle, and right outside of my cubicle was a big plaque that Bill had. It was a Shakespeare quote that says something like, "The first thing we should do is kill all the lawyers." And I think that was a message about how he viewed the legal profession. But I say that because, he obviously did understand the legal issues very well, but he was just such an entrepreneur and a creator. He wanted to find ways around challenges and obstacles. And I just that was just so fun to watch and observe.
I had a chance not to get to know him like you did, but I had to get a chance to meet him when I was working with Mitch Daniels during his first term as governor. And I just remember so well, his generosity, because it was at that time really when he started thinking about and beginning to invest in French Lick and the hotels there and the casino and the opportunity to bring that community back to life in many ways, just in terms of what it was before, the West Baden.
That project is sort of the culmination, I think, of everything he believed in.
Yeah.
So people think, it wasn't as if he sat down and drew up a business plan and said, I'm gonna go into the casino and French resort business.
Right.
It was really driven out of his passion and his interest. He was, he and his wife were really, I think, really bold pioneers in historic preservation of buildings. Their philosophy was, you can't just build a museum, right? If you just build it once and restore it once, it'll eventually go back to the way it was. You got to build it with a purpose, and it's got to have a reason for being. And they practice that over hundreds of restorations. So to see them go in and say, we want to restore these buildings, but we don't want to make them museums. We want to give them a life and energy.
Yeah.
That was the core of their whole belief, is that we can do this business. We can make this a good business, sustainable. We'll take a community that has one of the highest rates of unemployment in the state, and we'll create jobs and give people real opportunity. It all came together, and I think that's what all of us at Cook have come to understand, is that business is so intertwined with your community that if you ignore it, you're missing real opportunity.
Yeah. What are a couple other things, having the opportunity to know Bill Cook and the family, what are a couple other things that maybe are takeaways for you that he instilled in you while he was alive and working at the company?
Yeah, there's so many things. One of the things I loved about working with him is that he didn't put on a persona. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many people that they enter an environment, a work environment, or whatever it is, and they put on a persona, and it's not them.
Yeah.
He was never that. He was himself every time. He showed up as himself. And I learned that, for me, what I learned was that people trusted it. They believed him, and it was authentic because it was. It was just him. And there are times now when I look for that in people. I look for that in partners or people we're going to work with.
Yeah.
That authenticity is, you get to know them, right? And you get to understand what the real person is. that was a huge aha moment for me, because I think coming out of law school almost teach you to put on a persona.
Yeah.
You have to behave like a lawyer. You have to dress like a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I realized I don't have to do that. I can be who I am, and people are going to respond to it in a better way.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, you got some Jordans. On.
Yeah.
I noticed that
you were kind enough to put some on next to me here too.
We tried to do a little calling card for our guests, and having had the opportunity to get to know you and have you come to some of our IBJ events and participate, I know that's part of that might be something you inherited a little bit, or just to what you just described. But Bill was authentic, and you're authentic in that way. You can have a suit on and a tie, and you've got your Jordan.
Yeah, probably not a tie though. I'll put a sport coat on, but rarely a tie.
Okay.
But as growing up in Crown Point, I grew up in Crown Point during the heyday of Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Right, we would go up to the Chicago Stadium, and I mean, just it's imprinted on my brain, I think. So I have a clear winner in the GOAT conversation.
Yeah, I do too, because we're the same generation.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I want to turn to the actual cook business. We're going to talk a lot more about some other things that you're involved in that you're outside of the cook business. But let's talk about, just make sure our listeners understand the Cook Group and Cook Medical and all that you're doing today. As people who know the lore of Bill Cook and know that the company was started out of the spare bedroom that he and Gail had in Bloomington in 1963, initially making medical devices, guide wires for catheters, right? And had the first coronary stent approved in the U.S., which is incredible, just unbelievable. And I read that his intent in that was to eliminate the need for always having open surgeries instead of being able to treat differently.
He had several of those in his lifetime and understood the challenge of that.
So today, just to give our listeners an understanding of what Cook looks like today, because those were the early days and maybe a couple of products, but today you've got thousands of products, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of families of products, but they all kind of come from the same basic principle, which was, the time the company was founded, if they didn't know what was wrong with you, they cut you open, right? They just slice you open and look for that problem.
Yeah.
So he understood that with a needle, a wire, and a catheter, you could get into the body without surgery. Well, that was the start. Physicians started to go to different areas of the body, treating different things, understanding they needed different tools. And so it just expanded across. Now we're in 43 different specialties of medicine. If you go to the hospital and have a minimally invasive procedure, it's highly likely that you're going to have a Cook product. I have had Cook products used. My family's had Cook products used.
Yeah.
So it looks today very much like a company. We're global in nature, 13,000 employees, facilities across the world. And what's remarkable about it is it's still family owned, still has the DNA of the Cook family imprinted on it, which is why I think it's such a special place to work.
Well, that was I was going to ask you next, which is what you just referred to as it being a family-owned company and the uniqueness of, from a culture standpoint, and how would you describe what it's like to lead a family-owned company? That does, I think you really try hard to stay true to that DNA that he instilled and he and Gail instilled, right?
It's such an honor and a privilege because it's so unique. I'm sure there are other situations like this, but the family is so supportive in terms of like, hey, we want you to run they want to do some basic things, right? Make sure that we keep our reputation intact. Make sure that we're doing the right things for patients. Make it a great place for people to work.
Yeah.
And then just do the right thing, right? It's never about, we don't have quarterly, we obviously have budgets and we have our numbers are very important, but that's not the first thing they ask about. The first thing they ask about is, what are we doing new? Are our employees happy? Is it a good place to work? That's a very freeing thing to do. Now it comes with its own unique challenges, right? We don't have as much access to capital and resources as some other companies do. So we have to think a little bit differently, but I'll take those challenges over the others any day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's neat. And, I'm familiar with a lot of friends and family owned businesses and it's a unique, like you said, has its own set of challenges, but it's also what makes the place really special and just to have value.
You asked about Bill. I was going to share a story of why this will be my brain to the day I die. Just to give you a sense of person who was, this is a guy who's very successful, done so many things in his lifetime, like unbelievable amounts of awards and could easily be could have legitimately sort of carried himself with a sense of, I'm a cool dude. But he just didn't.
Yeah.
I was sitting in my office one day and just doing my work, and he came in, he sat down, he's like, I got to ask you something. I'm like, okay. So what kind of underwear do you wear? I said, well, I don't know. He's like, well, I had these briefs, and I'm just not happy with them, so I need to know what people are wearing these days. And I thought,
awesome.
What an amazing, like he was just such an authentic person.
I love it.
Like it just endears you to that because and then it also is again very freeing because it doesn't, you don't have to put on a persona. You can be who you want to be.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that story. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you have, as a leader of the company, continued that tradition that Bill started of investing into kind of what you described, French lick, hard hit at the time, high unemployment rate, not having the opportunities for people who grew up in some of these communities to really better themselves and find opportunities. And you did that more recently in Indianapolis, as I mentioned in the opening, where you partnered with Goodwill and you built an FDA-approved manufacturing facility in the Devington area on the northeast side. That was a big investment. I know, and I remember talking with you, I think in an IBJ event, about the uniqueness and the challenges, the opportunities on that project. How is that investment and work going today?
Yeah, it's hard to believe we started back in the pandemic, right? We did all that work for the pandemic. Yeah. But just a really, really satisfying, important project that now has been embraced and owned by the community. We started off saying, well, could we provide jobs and opportunity? And then Goodwill comes in and says, yeah, we can do that, but we can also, we've got people who are involved in the judicial system or who maybe never worked before or need transportation, all these services they can bring to the table to really move people from sort of stagnation to real opportunity and real education and upward mobility. To see that over the course of 4 years and what's happened and how people are sticking with us and growing in the organization. Yeah. I met one gentleman who they were doing a luncheon for him because he had been there for, I think, 9 months or so. And he said that he was sharing a story that he had not been free in 30 years. He was either in prison or wearing an ankle bracelet for 30 years. And this is the first time he had ever taken that ankle bracelet off.
Wow.
After 30 years. And he was succeeding and doing well. And that's the kind of thing that, look, you can, that's why I said we can do those jobs anywhere, really. We could have outsourced them.
Sure.
We could have done them in Bloomington, but why not do that in a place where 1 and 1 equals 3? I mean, that's the beauty of it is it's not philanthropy. It's sort of goes back to what we talked about with Bill that's what we learned was you can do business in a way that's uplifting too.
Right. Yeah. It's, and I remember how much and how hard you worked to engage the local community, to find minority suppliers and to give people opportunity on that front too. You spent a lot of time and effort on that front.
Yeah. We worked, this looked different. I mean, the community said, hey, we want opportunity. If you're going to build this thing, can we get some opportunity to build it too? Well, of course, right? That makes a lot of sense. And so, we had some really great partners doing that. And we brought in people, I think it was something like 65 people earned certificates in the construction industry that had never worked there before.
Wow.
So again, trying to build opportunity and use those opportunities that come along and say, let's just not bring in the same old group again. Let's try to open it up for people.
Oh, it's great. It's great. So as I mentioned also in the opening, you're Cook and you are really engaged in the state's life sciences sector and efforts, involved in many initiatives. Today, how would you assess the state of Indiana's life sciences sector as a whole? What can we do? Everybody, of course, BioCrossroads and others are thinking economic development are really thinking about how can we take it to the next level. Of course, we have Lilly and we've got Roche and the list keeps going on. We have Cook. What's missing? How can we take it to the next level? We think about Boston being a leader and certain places around the world. What would you recommend we do to kind of take it to the next level?
So I think the infrastructure, obviously the infrastructure and the base of our life sciences industry is incredibly strong. If you look at the GDP of Indiana, right? It's largely relying on that. And what I think we have missing, and I that's why I'm so supportive of like the IU Labs project, is we need entrepreneurism in this space. We've got a lot of really stable, incredible organizations, right? Without Lilly, the state would be in real trouble.
Right.
So I'm forever grateful for what they do. But we need new startups. We need new technology. We need new growth. And I think that's a lot of work going on to try to establish that. But until you really create an ecosystem that allows people to feel like, okay, if I'm going to start a company, Indiana is the place I got to go. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
Because when we look around and we interact with new inventors and things, it's not like it's the hub yet. I think there's a basis for it. And I think that we're building that, but we need to get there because that's the energy. That's the juice that gets everybody going, is that new, bold innovation that drives all the attention and all that. That's so right. I think that's where we need to go. Yeah.
And you mentioned the IU Lab announcement, the $140 million investment by the endowment, and the focus by IU, to really kind of, I think, go after that. And, what do you think that has a potential to begin the flywheel,
sure,
sort of say? And
I think Purdue's doing great work there too. You know, we've been in their tech park, and I love the fact that now I will say to you, I feel like Indiana gets too much coverage, or Indianapolis gets too much coverage in the world, because I think there's great things happening across Indiana. But having the IU Labs in the middle of the state, in the hub, is really important. I think that the access, we're in 16 Tech, the access to world-class hospitals, to IU medicine, there is a huge benefit of being there. And I think if we can start to attract the right people, we're going to have, it's not one thing to build a building. It's another thing to attract the right people.
Right.
And hopefully there will be some government funding for these things in the future. I don't know. But I'm hopeful that, yes, it has tremendous potential.
Yeah. Well, we're working here at IBJ Media. We're working on bringing more attention.
I like to give you a hard time about that.
We're working hard at it, and will be more to come on that front for sure.
Yeah.
So talent acquisition, retention strategies, I know has kind of always been near and dear to Cook's heart, to your heart, to your founder, Bill and Gail. And I know that you spent a lot of time. You've got, am I right that you have 7,500 out of the, I think you mentioned about 13,
more than half of our global workforce in Indiana.
More than half in Indiana. So 7,500 makes sense that you would want and need to be focused on those types of issues. I understand. I think we've reported on you have gone as far as building housing in Owen County, making home ownership easier and more attainable in Spencer County. Talk about some of those initiatives and how important they are to be able to have the workforce that it makes Cook continue to grow and prosper.
Yeah, I think we try to look at it as an ecosystem. Right? Again, it goes back to what's the community like? What is your experience at Cook like? What are your opportunities? Some of the big obstacles that we found were housing. Housing's a problem everywhere. I don't think we're naive enough to think that we're going to solve the housing problem, but we wanted to be sort of a tip of the spear and say it can be done. And so we've had great success. We've had employees who are now, I think 95% of the houses we've built so far are occupied by a Cook employee.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we want that to be a good investment for them. We want it to build a community. We want them to be part of the organization. So those are all great, but we need people to join in, and sort of like our education programs too, right? So we obviously have a high school program where people can come work for us in the morning, go to school in the afternoon, get their high school diploma, and get paid full time. We have free education all the way up to a master's degree. So we want to be a partner in helping improve your life and your family's life. That's what jobs used to be, right? That's what we want it to be again.
No, I think those practices that you've developed at Cook are a model and can be a model for a lot of other companies, because that's, I mean, you know better than I do. I mean, I know it from my business experience that if you don't have the people and the talent, then you don't have anything. And so a lot of people, a lot of companies, I should say, struggle for talent, but thinking out, you've done a great job of thinking outside the box, and a lot of these things have really paid off. These programs have helped Cook.
You look at our longevity, right? Yeah, that's why people stay there for a long time. That's why I've been there for 23 years.
Yeah,
it's so unique, and it really feels like maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's old fashioned or whatever, but I do feel like people want to belong to something that is bigger than them, has a purpose, has a mission,
right?
And they feel like you're part of that equation. You're not just a transaction. You're not just somebody. You're not a number that we're just working through. And I think when we do things like the education, give people free education, we say to them, hey, look, get your education while you're here. And we hope you stay forever. But if you don't, go be great in the community too.
That's right.
They feel like you're part of their lives in some way, and they are.
Yeah, no, it's spectacular and neat to see how you're doing that and how it's working. I want to shift gears a little bit. As I mentioned again in the opening, you're involved in this new era of college sports. That's the wild, wild west currently. IU's Name, Image, and Likeness Collective, Hoosier Connect, Hoosiers for Good are the names of those different efforts. And I know, of course, being an IU guy, that Cook historically has been engaged with IU and engaged with IU sports. I know a lot of former athletes who have worked at Cook.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about your efforts in that space, in this new NIL world, and what I mean. It's I know it's changing right before our eyes. We're living through it, but what does this look like today? And talk about maybe your and Cook's efforts and IU in general.
Yeah, so it's really, I sort of just volunteer my time to help, because about 4 years ago was when they started to talk about NIL coming. I remember having a conversation with a person at IU, and they thought, well, this will just be, it'll be like maybe a free lunch at Yogi's. and it clicked for me. I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a lot bigger than that. We need to get out in front of this and be proactive. And so I just volunteered to help try to figure it out. We didn't even know what to do. So I think we actually ended up forming, we had the first 501c3 ever granted for a collective. There weren't even called collectives back then, but it was sort of a thing. And we thought maybe the first year, if we could raise $100,000, we'd be really happy.
Yeah.
Now it's
takes a little more than that.
More than that today. Yeah.
I mean, it's, college players today are, the most talented are earning well over $1 million in some cases, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And, it's going to be interesting, because isn't there a new thing coming this fall, a revenue sharing idea and or requirement? I'm not sure how it actually works, but then, potentially, I guess there's some possibility that athletes actually become employees of the school, or that's
not in the works yet.
Okay.
I think it probably will end up happening.
Okay.
So the way it works right now is, you can sign a contract with an athlete for their name, image, likeness for just about any amount. There really aren't that many rules around it. There are some, and we follow those, but really it's schools can say, how much money can we raise? And I hate not to be cynical, but it's sort of the highest bidder is where the student athlete goes.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in that. It's a good thing for these student athletes to make money.
Yeah.
That's why I got in the beginning. They deserve it. They're the traction. They're the ones that everybody else is making
money around them, right?
Everybody else is making a lot of money around them, so I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But you really needed to have a set of rules in place. They opened that box, and then there was no guidance, no rules, and so you had to kind of navigate it as best you could based on your ethics and what you thought was right. And I think we've done a really good job of that. But it should have been planned, and there should have been some forethought about how this is going to work.
Right.
And so now they're left trying to create some new rules, and they're ostensibly this lawsuit's happening, it's going to be settled, and there'll be these rules. But I think the lawyers are all lining up, going, "We're going to challenge these rules, and do you have the authority to do it? And do you need an act of Congress for an antitrust exemption?" And yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All we can do is keep our head down. We want to create the best environment we can for student athletes at IU. We want us to be competitive. We want to make it real. So we want to, we don't want to just, some of these schools will just write you a check and not do anything. And for us, kind of why Hoosiers for Good came in. It was the idea, goes back to the Cook philosophy of, if we're going to do this work, why not take that opportunity and that energy and that spotlight that's happening and reflect it on these partners that we've seen doing great work in the community.
Yeah.
And that's been really satisfying too. See some of these athletes, athletes will stay on beyond their contracts. We have people who have graduated and they're still relating to these kids that they've been involved with. And so that's been a really great outcome.
Do you think that the competitiveness of college sports, and what I mean by that is it feels to me it's moving to the world of have and have nots, meaning the smaller schools. I mean, I don't know if this year's March Madness Final Four was representative of what's coming or not. Who knows? But we had all the number one seeds, and most, not all, some of those schools, they bring in the top dollars and NIL. And do you think the smaller schools are going to have a lot harder time staying competitive, and will that be not so great for college sports? Or how do you think about that?
Yeah, that's why I think there needed to be some thought about this whole process, because when you create financial incentive plus free mobility, essentially, right, for the transfer portal, what do you think is going to happen? The talent's going to flow to where the money is. I had a conversation with a coach, and I won't say which school, but it was a mid-major, and I think he was half joking, but he said, "Would you come run our collective for us?" And I was like, I got plenty to do. But his take on it was, what do I do?
Yeah.
As a mid-major, now that the JUCO rules are in place, which says if you go to a JUCO, it doesn't count against your NCAA eligibility.
Oh.
So kids are thinking about, now maybe I'll go to JUCO for 2 years,
realize that.
grow and develop, and that's I got my 4 years at. So why would I go to a mid-major versus a JUCO? So recruiting's harder. And then once they show them up at the mid-major and they're really good, the next thing that happens is they transfer. So I think if we're going to think about, there has to be some thought about, how do we segment and how do we stratify the organization? Otherwise, we're going to end up with F1, where you've got 3 teams that can compete,
right, and
everything else is just for show.
Yeah, that's a little scary. That's a good example, though.
Yeah,
that's a little scary. So you got a little shout out during Coach DeVries, the new Indiana University basketball coach, during his, I think, introductory press conference, and then you've had the opportunity to actually sit down and do an interview with him. Were you involved in the process, or are you just getting to know him? Tell us a little bit about that process.
So Scott Dolson, what a tough job he's had.
Yeah,
he came in during the pandemic when all of that happened. Then NIL happened, then the transfer portal, and now we're here. And so he's done a remarkable job. I can't say enough about how he has navigated this thing.
I mean, hiring Coach Signetti, it kind of helps in that aura.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, right.
It worked out pretty well. Year number one.
Exactly right. And I think DeVries is going to be terrific. But think about the challenge he has now of putting together an entire team in the time when the portal is the craziest and the wildest. Boy, I tell you, I don't envy those guys. They have a hard job. So I wasn't. Scott did it absolutely the right way, which was, he asked everybody for input.
Okay.
But he said, I'm going to make the decision.
Yeah.
And so, who am I to pick a college coach? I don't know anything. So all I can do is help support and make sure everybody has the resources they need.
Well, hopefully he did as well a job, on the basketball side as it looks like the program is headed in the right direction on the football side. So we'll see. We'll hope for the best. So you've been involved with some podcasts. So you're on the receiving end today, but you've had a podcast, Lunch at the Mill. I think that one maybe is discontinued now, but now you've got one that you do from time to time called Uncommon, which focuses on people who are leading in their communities in unexpected ways, which I think kind of describes you, by the way. But tell us about your experience and as a podcaster, and maybe you can even go into your experience. It's kind of somewhat related, your experience in the movie making business. So Cold the River. But tell us a little bit about your interest and your experiences on the media side and the filming side.
Yeah. So for me, the podcasting is just a way. It's sort of the only information we get today, or you're able to consume, seems to be short bursts of rage.
Yeah.
In some way,
Yeah.
And to be able to go back and have a long form conversation with somebody like we're doing now.
Yeah.
You get to know people, you get the nuance of it. You really can get at the heart of what's happening. So on Uncommon, our first guest was a monk who was also one of the world's experts in AI. So that's a very unusual combination.
It is an unusual combination.
Yeah. And so those two perspectives were fascinating. Got to have a really fortunate experience to talk with one of our employees who was unfortunately going through congestive heart failure and was waiting for a heart transplant in the hospital for 73 days. And so we sort of did some episodes going through him. He was very honest and wanted to share his experience for others.
Yeah.
He ended up getting a ventricular assist device and is doing very well now. Then to talk to his wife about her experience of going and trying to support somebody through that. Think about how fortunate we are to have that opportunity to talk to somebody going through that. You just don't get that every day.
Right.
So the long form conversation is a dying art, but an important one, I think.
Yeah. No, it's neat. You've had those experiences. So talk a little bit about the movie So Cold the River, which was filmed at the West Baden Springs Hotel at the French Lick Springs Resort. Any interesting learnings from that experience? Do you see movie making in the future for Pete Yonkman?
So I think the first learning I have about filmmaking is that it costs a lot of money. You don't make any money.
I have to stop you just to say that what you just said was the exact same thing that Mickey Maurer said a couple of years ago when we started this podcast, because he got it. I got to tell this real quick.
Yeah.
He got into the movie making business. So I got try my hand at that. So he said it was a coming of age film called Diving In, and he always describes it the same way. When it hit the box office, and when the critics were, they said Diving In goes straight to the bottom. He said exactly what you just said. If you're looking to lose some money, and it'll be an interesting experience, but have some fun.
Yeah,
he said that's the movie making.
This was a one-off, just the stars aligned, right? So Michael Carita, who has this amazing book called "So-Called the River," and a terrific author based out of Bloomington. I had been at lunch with him and Bill before Bill passed, and Bill wanted to make this movie because it was about the hotels, it was about the community of French Lick and West Baden and all the history of it.
Yeah,
he really wanted to make it, but at the time the rights were owned by a movie studio.
Okay,
so rights reverted back, and so I was talking to Michael about it, and then obviously the hotel is there, just sitting there, right? It was this opportunity, and it's amazing on film, and so it just sort of kind of all the pieces came together, and we did it, and. What a fun experience, and the hotel just looks beautiful on this. If you've been to the hotel, you should check out the movie because it's the star of the movie.
I haven't watched the movie, but I'm going to now. But I got to ask you, have you ever had the same experience that I've had at the hotel, where you're looking down the hallway and you vision the two girl twins from the Shining?
You've had that experience?
Oh hell yeah! I think I look at it, I'm there, and I'm like, this feels like the movie The Shining. I didn't see the twins.
You didn't see the demonic twins.
But like I could see, remember the red rum scene?
Yeah.
Because the hotel's got the genre of, this is an old hotel, and there's probably a lot of things that over
there are. They have resident ghosts that they have names for. I forgot the names for them now, but I'll give you an example. We had a sales meeting there, right? And I got a call that one of our employees had checked out at 3:00 in the morning, and had to have her boyfriend come and pick her up because she would refuse to stay at the hotel because there was a ghost standing at the end of her bed, and she had to check out. So there's people there. People say that there are ghosts down there.
That's it gives it some of the charm and why you got to go down to French Lick and check it out. That's cool. As we've talked about, you've tried your hand at many different things, and have been able to do it while you've been at Cook, as a leader at Cook. Real estate development, we've talked about movie production, philanthropy, college athletics, talent initiatives we've talked about. If you weren't at Cook today, what the heck would you be doing with all the different experiences that you've had?
Would I be retired, or am I doing something else?
You got to be doing something else.
Okay. Well, I would love to. We talked about long form content and long form conversation.
Yeah,
I'd love to revive the Charlie Rose format of discussions. Now, not obviously Charlie turned into whatever he was, but the format. Well, I grew up on that. I don't know why. I have videotapes of that show. I would record it and watch it every one. I learned so much about life and understanding how humanity works and business and political issues. I mean, it was
sure
unbelievably valuable. And if somebody had the full hour, you knew that person was that person is important because they got the full hour.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't work anymore today, but boy, if I could just wave a wand, that's what I would probably do because you get to meet fascinating people. And
well, that's why I love doing this podcast.
Yeah, you're in a good position.
I get to meet fascinating people and hear all about the great stories and learnings that they had in their lives and careers. So I really enjoy doing it. So I could see why you might enjoy that too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, isn't it?
It is.
You learn something every time. It's a new conversation. Like, oh boy, I didn't.
100%. Yeah. And a lot of frequent reminders. I've got young kids and reminders about what it takes, today to be successful and thoughtful and, good person, a good friend, all those kinds of things.
Yeah. And everybody, what I appreciate about it is that people approach life in different ways. they've always, if they've made it to that conversation, they've figured something out.
That's right.
Whatever that little something is,
That's
it's worth knowing.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, Pete, we've made it to off the record speed round. You don't have to answer too quickly.
A buzzer or something?
We should implement a buzzer. We haven't yet, okay. But I give you some different questions, and you can take as long as you want because this is kind of fun. But I'll get it started. So, besides Cold the River, your favorite movie?
So Cold the River.
Cold the River.
You're gonna plug the movie. You got to get the name right.
River. Besides So Cold the River, your favorite movie?
Ooh. This is where I'm supposed to give you like some art house movie that makes me sound like I'm interesting.
I don't know.
No, I gotta say, so it's either Top Gun, because it's just, how do you not watch that movie?
Love it.
Tom Cruise, you gotta get him on your podcast. If you get him on your podcast, I'll come and watch.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do that.
All right. And then the first 2.5 movies of the Star Wars trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy. You're speaking my language. You really are. Well, we probably grew up in similar influences, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, in the second Top Gun movie, I really enjoyed too.
Oh, great! Yeah,
I mean, it was really good. But the 80s, so late 70s, 80s. I mean, I remember going to with my dad in 1977 to see the Star Wars film in the movie theater, and there's nothing like it. It blew me away.
It just is life changing, right?
Exactly.
And then the kids don't have the same. They don't have the appreciation they should have for it.
Right.
What I say to them.
Yeah.
I made a joke that I would not let my older son, who's now 18, I wouldn't let him watch the prequels until he turned 18.
Yeah.
It was such a bad, I hate them.
Yeah. I do
so I was like, you just cannot, I wouldn't let him watch them. And so he didn't really care. Then one day he's like, why can't I watch them? Because they're so bad. I don't want you to be influenced. I don't want those in your brain because they're so bad.
Yeah. I did something with my kids. I made sure they started, the
right way.
With the number 4.
Yeah. A New Hope.
New Hope. Favorite place to vacation?
I don't know if I have a favorite place. We just did spring break with my family. So my son's 18, which, going to college, and that's kind of sad and all that. But then I have a kid, the younger son, who's in 6th grade. But I think what we figured out is, like, if we can go to a place and be active and doing things and seeing new experiences and trying new things, doesn't matter where you are. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And to watch them learn through that and to see their how they embrace those activities. Like they went to snowboard and ski for the first time last time, and they did it.
That's
I didn't, because I want to save my joints, but they were able to do it and picked it up, and it's so much fun to watch them learn how to do that.
Yeah. It's a great activity. It's one of my favorite, by the way.
Are you a snowboarder or a skier?
I'm a skier.
Okay.
Yeah. Favorite musical artist?
Okay. Well, embarrassingly, I'm going to embarrass myself on this one. So if I had to say the most songs that I know the most of and the most lyrics of, is probably Rush, which, that's not a cool thing to say.
I don't think that's embarrassing.
Then I grew up in college with the grunge era and Pearl Jam, I would say second. Yeah. But I want to put a plug in for an artist right now who's a fellow Hoosier named Stephen Wilson Jr. He's from Seymour, Indiana.
Okay.
He just kind of coming out in terms of being known and recording. His first album came out. He's a mix between sort of Johnny Cash and Kurt Cobain.
Wow. And that's quite a mix.
Yeah, it is. And I just got to check him out. He's a fellow Hoosier, and I think we should support him.
Look forward to it. Yeah. Look forward to it. What's the first thing you do in the morning? Do you have a morning routine?
You know what the sad thing is? Probably there's about 30 seconds between waking up and checking my phone.
Right.
Which is horrible, I know, but that is true.
Yeah.
You got to see what's happening in Asia and what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's it.
Title of the last book you read, or one that is one of your favorites?
Last book I read was the story of how Marconi built his wireless telegraph business, and then the murder, the Crippen murder that happened in England, how those two things came together. It was Thunderstruck was the name of it.
Okay.
Fascinating. It was the story of the wireless telegraph, but then how it was used to catch this murderer, and he was on the run, and it became this first viral sort of murder chase. Everybody was covering it, but they're on a boat, so they didn't know they were being covered, but the Marconi system was being used to report that out throughout the world. And so first viral live stream is what I think about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. What food can you not live without? Favorite food?
I don't know about favorite, but what I can't live without is probably yogurt.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. It seems to be like my go-to food if I need something, some energy or something.
Okay, so college football playoff or NCAA tournament? What's your football or basketball? I guess a better way to ask it.
No, that's not fair. I can't. They get
Or which
sensitive about.
which we got this new champion, this playoff, which IU.
Yeah.
Year number one.
But let me say this: having gone through, in my lifetime have never gone through. I've been to a lot of football games. Have never experienced anything like last season.
Yeah,
the energy, it was all week long. It went from like Wednesday to Sunday.
It was special.
And football is different that way. I never knew that. It's like everybody's in the same place. Everybody's having a tailgate. Everybody's enjoying the whole weekend.
As an IU guy, we just didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I thought it was like something you went to and you stayed for a half and then you went home.
Yeah, the kids tailgated most of the game.
Yeah. So now to watch that was just mind blowing and a lot of fun. That's why you want to do it again, right? And then I went to Notre Dame for the college football playoff. But what a sight! I mean,
I did too. I was there. It was freezing, and I told my family went, and I said, "You're going to be okay until the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then you're really going to start feeling it." And that's
because we were losing, that didn't help a whole lot either.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I love it, but I remember the last 2001 when we were in the championship for the NCAA tournament. But I wasn't in Bloomington for the other national championship, so I don't know what that's like. I've heard about it, right? They line 37.
I've heard about it too. Yeah.
I just don't know what that feels like. So let's experience them both, right? Yeah. How about that?
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Best advice you ever received?
So I would say show up and pay attention. I kind of actually give this advice to people when they're coming to cook, because I watch in a room, if a meeting, I don't know if you do this, but like in a meeting, I watch people and they pay attention when it's their turn to speak or it's their issue.
Yeah.
And their brain turns off. To me, it was like, when I'm done, then now it's my opportunity to learn what's going on from everybody else.
Right.
And what are they doing? Especially when I was younger and I didn't understand. If you just show up and pay attention to everything, you're ahead of like 95% of the people in the world.
Agree.
It's just such an easy thing that people just don't do it.
Agree 100%. That's a good one. So advice for a young person who's trying to build their career and advance themselves.
I would play with every AI tool I can find. Today I would say I spend about 50% of, if it's not tariffs, that's now new, but before tariffs, it was 50% of my time was on AI. Trying to understand it, trying to figure out how we're going to implement it, how it's going to change our workforce.
Yeah.
Playing with the tools. But I would just, you don't have to be a genius anymore, a soft coding genius to play with the stuff.
Right.
You can play with it in any different way. And I really think if you're not understanding it you have to go beyond ChatGPT, right? That's one thing. But you've got to just start playing with the image creation tools and the agent creation tools and understanding that it is going to be a part of all of our lives.
Yeah. That's good advice. How about advice for a person who wants to really get engaged in their community? Where should a young person start on that front to become a community leader eventually?
I would start as close to the people that you're trying to help as possible. There's so many times you can volunteer at an organization. It's great, right? We should all volunteer at organizations. But let's say you go to a food pantry and you're making boxes for food. It's a great thing to do, no doubt. But you don't learn the real problem and the real person you're trying to help. Go find the person who's going to get that box and try to spend time with them to understand what they need, how they need it, where the issues are. Sometimes we build these big complexes around challenges and everybody's so removed from the actual person or challenge, they don't really understand what they're helping. So it's sort of like, if you're in a career, you want to be able to touch all parts of a business, not just one.
Right.
I would say the best place to start is get as close to that person as you can, in that supply chain, but in that dynamic, rather than being in a office or a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah, makes good sense.
Yeah.
Well, Pete, it's been a wonderful time to talk with you and more long form, like you described, on the Indiana 250 podcast. And Appreciate all that you are doing, not only for Cook, leading one of Indiana's great companies, but all you're doing for the state of Indiana and beyond. You've had an impact. You continue to have an impact. I know you will for years to come. Don't retire anytime soon. But congratulations on all the success and wishing you continued success.
Well, I appreciate that, but I also want to say thank you to you, because in the IBJ, I've told you this before, that it seems to be the last bastion of real reporting and factual news that I can find anymore. So I very much appreciate what you're doing and what your team is doing. I can trust it. I get it reliably, and you're covering the right issues. And so I hope you continue to expand it. Hope you expand your coverage throughout Indiana, because I'd like to see more of that. But it's really refreshing to see, and we need more of it.
Thank you. It's coming from you. It means a lot. And you've been kind enough in the past to say that, and it means a lot. So greatly appreciate it. We're working on it, and we'll continue to work on it too. So thanks again so much.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
But appreciate it. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 off the record conversation soon.